Well, now I'd like to turn to Hi-Rail Modeling. The sponsor for this segment of our show is Millhouse River Studios. And if we can run that video, please.
Millhouse River Studio builds model train working accessories that are made to last generations. Millhouse River products are built out of aluminum and have scale brass details that even the most demanding scale modeler will appreciate. Since our industry entry in 2009 with the introduction of our flagship turntable, Millhouse River has continued to add new, innovative products, like our scale transfer table, rotary coal dumper, flood coaling tower and, most recently, a working conveyor that transports coal from the dumper to the loader. All of Millhouse River Studio's stunningly realistic products are currently available in O scale. We are adding new scales on some products, including the upcoming release of an HO scale turntable featuring our aluminum construction and stunning brass details that is big enough to handle a big boy locomotive. When it comes to your layout, don't settle for less, get Millhouse River Studio.
And our host for this segment of the show is Mr. Dennis Brennan. Dennis, welcome.
Hi, Jim.
How are you?
I'm doing well, and hi, guys. I'm going to put a little plug for myself here. The coal that you see being dumped out of Millhouse River Studios coal dumper and his other accessories, guess where that comes from, guys? Brennan's Model Railroading. And it's the only coal he recommends, and it's real Reading anthracite coal. You can't beat it. Okay, enough for that. Interesting, tonight I'm going to talk about wiring, or maybe what you shouldn't do in wiring. I recently had a request from someone who lives in Maryland. Could I come and help him get his layout running after 25 years of just sitting dormant? And it was originally wired by a friend of his who was an electrician and a model railroader, so he should know what he was doing. And I assumed this wouldn't be much of a problem, so off I went. So now we are going to we're going to share this right here. Is that coming up, guys? You see that?
Yes.
All right. Okay,
Yes.
wiring 101. Does this look familiar? I think we've all seen it. Well, that's kind of what I saw too. But before that, I took a look around, and this was the wiring on the underneath the layout. The electrician did an incredible job. I mean, everything was labeled and numbered. Everything went to terminal strips. I mean, look how neat that is. All the wires were bundled nicely. And so I thought, okay, no problem. We'll just get right to it. And the first order of business, if here's another view. And you can see he had everything numbered. These RCS stands for remote control sections. Now, this was a Lionel layout, traditional Lionel layout, where he bought all the accessories way back, well, back in the 90s when it was Model Products Corporation. General Mills took over Lionel, and most of the stuff was being made in Mexico at that time. But I digress. At any rate, he had every accessory known to man on this layout. And so the all of the remote control sections, which are needed for your operating cars, were all labeled, numbered, the wires color-coded. And then over here, these are all part of your switch machine wiring. And if I go back one, that's all switch machine wiring layout right here. So I thought, great. And again, you can see main 026 switches, 1, 2, blah, blah, blah. So, okay, then here's the accessory control panel, very neatly arranged. You can see part of his layout up here. So the first order of business for me was to make sure that the track was clean. And I can't stress that enough. And so we did that. Now here's a view of, he had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I think there were 5 ZW transformers here, and then he had another 2 on another console. These all operated various things. One of them was for switches. Great, wonderful, turnouts. Another one was for the various accessories. Another one was for all of the lighting, I guess. Another one was, I don't even know. And the other thing is, he had ground wires everywhere. Now, I'm not sure why he did this. These ZW transformers have 4 different circuits in each one, A, B, C, and D, and they all have a common ground inside. They're all connected, yet he ran separate ground wires from every single one of these transformers. I have no idea why, because typically one ground wire should be enough if it's a sufficient size. And with the voltage and amperage that we're using, with the amperage we're using on these layouts, I can't imagine that you would need all of this. So I never did get an explanation for why that was. So here, let's go back. All right, now we get to underneath the layout. What happened? Here's all the nice cables, but then it turned into a spaghetti maze. And if something didn't work, it was impossible to track down where the wires went. I mean, this right here is basically, I think, all the switch machine stuff, but then he had layout sections. The layout was divided into sections, each operated by an on-off toggle. I think they were actually double pole, double throw, so we could run more than one train. This was the way it was done back in the day before command control. And so I assumed that all of that wiring was done first, and it was all cabled and neatly done. But then with all the accessories that he had on the layout, and I'm not sure whether he did it or whether the layout owner did it, but each accessory layout wire was run separately. If it was cabled up, I couldn't find it. And you end up with this nightmare underneath the layout. I had to put in some lights myself. Okay, so now here, this is not his layout. This is a professional wiring job done by TW Trainworks in Dallas. Now they make layouts for museums and for individuals. They're not cheap, but they have to have a consistent type of wiring. All of their layouts are built. I mean, any layout builder has to build in sections. You're not gonna, so the sections are all modular, and then they get joined together and the seams are covered over once the layout gets put in place. But the wiring is standard from section to section. And what they did is they used color codes. So there is one ground wire for everything. And it doesn't matter whether it's AC or DC, the same black wire is used for ground, and you can run both things through it, both AC and or DC, using the same ground. You don't have to run a separate wire, 2 separate wires for every accessory. That's a mistake that a lot of people make. And He has one color for lights, he's got another color for switches, he's got another color for power, he's got another color for accessories. And what he has done is they're all wired to these, I think these are Euro connectors. And then he has like just pieces of wire strung between them. And so each module, which this is one of them, all of the wires for that particular module get soldered on to one of these wires, depending on where it's going to go. So at any rate, that's not to say that you should do this. This is overkill. But there's a few things we can learn here. One of them is, you notice that it's all painted white underneath the layout. This is a fireproof paint that they use that just happens to be white. Now, we don't really need to use fireproof paint on our layout. You can if you want, but if you're a custom layout builder, I'm assuming that that's really kind of necessary just in case, so that you can't be accused of any kind of negligence. But the key here is that it's white. And if it's white, you could easily paint the underside of your layout white before you do any wiring. And guess what? Look at how everything shows up. And the other thing they did is they stapled the wires right up to the layout, and they have like a rabbit hole in underneath. Didn't mean to do that. They have a rabbit hole underneath, and at any rate, we can go back here because we don't need to see any more of that. If I can just get back to where I was. Hold on. I'm not sure how I get back. Oh, here we go. Let's see. How do I get out of this? Okay, here we go. Okay, so the point is that you can do this similar thing, and wires don't have to be hanging in a tangled mess. And the other thing that you need to do is make a wiring diagram. It can be simple, but the things that I think are important is use a color code. You have basically you need a ground and a hot, all right? You need two wires. You can run them the length of the layout if you want. And you'll need a hot for each of your separate circuits, or you'll need one wire at any rate for each of your separate circuits. So accessories could be yellow, switches could be whatever color you want. Street lights could be another color. So that's my suggestion. And I would try to keep, what I do personally is I still use solenoid switch machines, old school. That's how it started. Those have like 12 contacts on each one of them. I wired each one of them to a terminal strip that's immediately below the switch machine, right onto the layout. And they're all wired exactly the same way. Then I ran all of the wires to another terminal strip that's right in the front of my layout, so I can get at it. They're all wired the same way. Now, if I need to add, I'm not using some of those circuits. I'm not using most of them. But if I had to add signaling, it's just a simple matter of tying into the proper terminal strip screws, and I'm all set. So that's something that I think you ought to think about, especially like if you've got streets with cars on them that have wires, and you got street lights. I would just make sure that you have a way that you can disconnect things. Now, what I use is, besides terminal strips, I use crimp connectors, and I also use wire nuts. Now, some people say, oh no, No, don't use crimp connectors. Don't use wire nuts. Not a good, not good. Well, if you want to lay on your back and solder underneath the layout, more power to you. But if you look at your house wiring, guess what they use inside those metal boxes? Guess what? They use twist connectors. So if it's good enough for house wiring, it should certainly be good enough for your layout. And if you and crimp connectors, those are fine. I string a black and a red for my power. And then I just use a crimp connector and put in another wire coming from that. And you can do that anywhere on that red wire and on the black wire. You can put a crimp connector anywhere. You don't have to cut anything. Add a wire to it and you're all set to go. If you need, if you have several different accessories or things that have to be hooked up in the same general area, you can bring them all to one basic spot and use a twist connector on it. And then take another wire and run it to, run it to the hot, from your crimp connector to a twist to your accessories. So that's pretty simple. I've had a layout in my basement now for 35 years and never once has one of those connections ever failed me. So think about it. Keep it simple. Once you start adding accessories, it's real easy to get that spaghetti maze because you keep adding wires. Oh, it's only 2 wires. Well, 2, 4, 6, it multiplies. So just think of a way that you can keep that wiring down. And if I hope some of this helps. So that's it for today. I hope that made sense. And thanks for if you have any questions, and just give me a holler. So back to you, Jim.
Anybody have any questions for Dennis?
Dennis, did you get the layout running?
Yes, we did. The layout was running, but the problem was, I'm glad you asked that question. The problem was that the accessories didn't work. Now, some of them you couldn't even get at, and trying to find where they were underneath the layout was impossible. So that's another clue. Another suggestion is label underneath your layout where something comes through. Just take a magic marker and make a code up for yourself so that you know that this is where that item comes through. Because when you got a bunch of stuff close together, almost impossible to find the wiring. Well, what we discovered, even though I couldn't trace the wiring, what we discovered is that these accessories sat for so long and they had a lot of rubber band type drives. Guess what happens to a rubber band that's left for ages and ages? It
Dries out.
dries up. It's broken. So that's another thing. So but we did get it running. The accessories we determined were FUBAR for the most part. And some things, switches, they needed to be worked back and forth. Track needed to be clean. That was the biggest problem in getting things running. The track had to be clean and the wheels had to be cleaned. So I can't stress that enough. Clean, clean, clean. And so that was it. Yes, we did get it running. Customer was happy.
So a couple of comments. That's Phil at home.
Dennis?
So a couple of quick comments. If you haven't used Wago connectors, everyone should check out Wago connectors. They're these lever connectors. A single connector will handle anything from a 12 gauge to a 22 gauge wire. And you can buy them in blocks of 2, 3, 4, 5. So you can run one wire in. If you want to use them for doing drops to the track, you can run your bus feeder on either side and run a center feed up to the track. They're brilliant. And the beauty of them is they make troubleshooting much more reasonable, because if you've got a block with a short, you can start pulling things off and checking and seeing when the short
Yep.
goes away and isolate. So Really good. You can buy them at Home Depot. You buy a pack of 50 for about $20. So they're about 30, 40 cents each. They're not terribly cheap, but no solder in your face, and they seem to last forever. I just got done rewiring a fairly large, 100, 110, 120 foot by 25, 20 foot O-scale layout. We bought a labeler that will do shrink wrap labels. It's about $100. You can buy the label tape on Amazon. The beauty of it is you can print out labels, put them on the wires and shrink wrap them. If you've got two wires, you can shrink wrap them together. And it really does dramatically reduce the effort to go find things when you do do all of your wires labeled that way so you can find them. So agree with you 100%. That little bit of time you spend in the beginning will be very helpful down the road. The other thing we did, we have a large number of Switchmaster switch machines, and they tend to, if they don't get used fairly regularly, they do tend inside, there must be some lubrication. It tends to kind of lock up. So what we did is we took the output of the switch machine power, ran it to basically a double bowl, double throw switch. And you can literally flip the switch and flip every switch machine on the layout. So you actually have a single switch, and you can just get in the habit of every day going over two or three times, and it exercises all the turnouts on your layouts, even the ones that you almost never use. So a few little hints in electrical for those large layouts like you're dealing with there.
Thank you. That's really good. I haven't used the Wago connectors. I know what you're talking about. And yes, I think they are fantastic. And if I was going to do anything, I would be using them now. So, good suggestion. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Phil. Dennis, thank you so much. Look forward to seeing you next time.
All right. We'll be here with bells on.